Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Midwest Medium Podcast. I'm your host, June Hessler. Thank you for joining me today. Today is New Year's. It's New Year's Day. So happy New Year. Happy 2025. Uh, quick little reminder, if you would rather watch this podcast, I do have a guest today. You can jump over to YouTube at June Hessler and you can watch. My guest today is none other than the popular, well-liked, funny friend of mine, and she's also my massage therapist, Holly Rosa. She's coming on today, and we're going to talk about our M&M, our massage and mediumships. I call them M&Ms. So in this episode, if you keep hearing me say M&M, I'm talking about our massage and mediumship events that we do live. So I asked Holly to come on and talk. I realized we really haven't talked about the event on our podcast, and because we're so blessed and it's been so well received, I thought it would be finally a good opportunity to chat with her. So she'll be on in a few minutes. But first, Happy New Year. I am curious if you have made New Year's resolutions. Every year, my New Year's resolution is to not make a resolution, but it's kind of like the older I get, the more silly that sounds. So, I need to figure out some resolutions for myself this year. I have a couple in mind. It was really cute. My daughter made a bingo card for herself for 2025. So the other day she was telling me what's on her bingo card, and she's got some really good goals on there, which includes potentially committing to a college. So we are approaching that stage in life for her and for me. My daughter is almost 18. It's hard to believe. By the way, that if you're watching, my door just opened. That is not a ghost. It's not something paranormal. It's my cat. You might be able to hear Eugene. He likes to talk. He's in here now. So, if you're ever watching my podcast and you see the door open like that, I promise you it's not paranormal. It is my cat. If it was paranormal, I would tell you. So, one thing I also wanted to talk about since I'm on the topic of New Year. Okay, Eugene, we're busy. Um, is the topic of loss. And so what I've learned from myself over the years, well, let me back up a little. If you follow my work and you're familiar with my mediumship, how it came into my life, if you're a regular listener of the podcast, you know I've talked about my son Jack, who was stillborn in 2018. And I've learned, especially in the beginning when the loss was so fresh, Christmas and New Year's was really difficult for me. I kept feeling like I was leaving him behind. Um, and oddly enough, New Year's, the first year, so Christmas of 2018 and New Year's going into 2019, that was the hardest New Year. It was harder than Christmas for me because I very much felt like I was leaving my son behind. I was leaving him in the past. And I know a lot of people feel that way around this time of year, whether it's the loss of a child or maybe a parent, someone just really significant in your life. And I want you to know that I'm not going to say it gets easier, but you learn how to live with it. You learn how to cope. You learn. One thing I told myself, it took a while, took a couple years, but I finally realized I'm not leaving him behind. I'm getting closer to when I can see him again. And so for me, that's helped a bit. Uh, so I just wanted to make sure to mention that I know New Year's can be really hard for some people, and I can absolutely empathize with that, um, because I've been there. And I'm not saying New Year's is super easy for me now. I still definitely have my difficult moments. Um, because we are going on 7 years since Jack's been gone. So I definitely can relate. So if what I'm saying is reaching your ears and it's resonating with you, please know that you will eventually have a bit of an easier time this time of year. There is hope, I promise you. So I know it's difficult. It takes work. It takes emotional work. It takes spiritual work, but it's on the horizon and it's definitely possible. So, with that being said, up next is my good friend Holly Rosa. We are going to talk about how we met, which, oh, by the way, I should tell you, if you're not familiar with Holly, listen to episode 14. That is when she's introduced to the podcast. We talk more about her massage work. She's an excellent massage therapist. I see her once a month. I highly recommend her. Um, so we'll talk more about how we met, how I discovered her as far as massage therapy goes. And we'll talk about how Massage and Mediumship was born. So stick around, you guys, because Holly is coming up next. All right, you guys, as promised, I have the popular, ever loving Holly Rosa here today. And I say popular because everyone seems to love you so much and think you're so funny and you have so many friends, and I think you have more friends than I do.
I just I get involved in the community a lot too. So I feel
Yeah,
like,
actually, yeah, you do. You're very
yeah,
involved in the Boy Scouts, your Boy Scout
yeah,
troop,
I help
and
run the Boy Scouts, the pack, the troop. Um, I
you
do a
volunteer
lot
at
with the
school.
community. I'm
Yeah,
always doing stuff with the school, always doing something with the city. So I feel like anywhere I go, people are like, "Oh, hey!" and then my family gets mad at me because we can never just like go to the store. I always end up talking to someone for a half hour.
yeah, yeah, that's how it goes. Comes with the territory.
Yep, exactly.
Well, thank you for being here. I did a little intro before we started recording, you and I was telling people that they should listen to episode 14 because that's when you were first on the podcast talking about your massage business and what got you into massage therapy. So that was
Yeah.
episode 14, and today, Holly, is episode 40. You're the
Oh my,
40th
yes,
episode. Yeah,
that's crazy.
I know. It's
Well,
super
congrats.
crazy.
Yeah, well, congrats to you for building that up and getting things going and coming up with things to talk about.
Well, thank you. Happy New Year.
Yeah, happy New Year.
Do you have any resolutions?
Um, Probably I think my resolution this year is just going to be self-care.
Yeah,
I think with the amount, as we just said, like all the things that I do for everybody else, I tend to be, they say put on the back corner of the stove. I'm barely in the kitchen, I'm not even on the countertop. I'm not.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Self-care is
self-care, I
important.
think. Yeah, healthcare is my resolution this year. How
Yeah,
about you?
I like it. I was that was part of my intro. My New Year's resolution every year is to not make a resolution, which is really stupid. Um, but I'm realizing as I get older, obviously it's important to have goals no matter what age you are. My daughter made a bingo card for herself for this year, so I thought that was a neat idea. Um,
Nice.
so I don't know. I need to figure it out. I know I need to meditate more, so that's definitely on my list. And kind of like, actually, I was meditating this morning and it came to me this morning, like meditate more. So that, and yeah, I need to ponder it some more.
Yeah,
So
I like the bingo idea. That's a good idea.
yeah, I thought that was cool. She made herself a bingo card. So, and one of the things on it, I don't want to share too much because I want her to have her privacy, but
Yeah, for sure.
one thing on it was committing to a college. So we're approaching
Oh,
that.
yeah. You got
So
one kid
anyway,
going into college, and I got one kid going into high school.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, she's still a junior now in high school, but it's coming.
Yeah,
So
good.
it goes fast, as you
It
know.
does. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you are here to talk about our massage and mediumship events. And like I was telling people in my intro, I call it Eminem. So I'm not talking about the rapper. I'm talking about I'm talking about massage and mediumship events. So I think it's important to kind of like get in the time machine and go way back to when we first met. So, we might have talked about this when you were on the episode or on the podcast before, episode 14. I really don't remember. I haven't listened to that one in a while. Um, but essentially, I was hopping around from massage therapy location to massage therapy location, trying to find a good massage therapist. I went to three different locations in my area, and I won't say the name, but it's like a massage chain that is well known. So I was going between three different locations because I found a couple therapists I like. Sometimes they're hard to get in with. So I would bounce around between these three locations. And I found a woman I really liked, but she left and she didn't tell me where she went. And I just knew that it was my last time with her. And I was kind of disappointed. And I didn't know her last name. It's not like I could look her up and like figure out where she went or whatever. Maybe she quit massage therapy altogether for all I know. I have no idea. And then I went to a different location and I actually was able to get in with you really quickly. So I think someone must have canceled, and that's how I was able to slip in.
Yeah.
And so we met, and this was back when masks were still required. So I really didn't even know what your face looked like. I just knew what your like I knew what your eyes and your mask looked like. And so I started seeing you, and I remember coming home after that first time and I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's awesome." Because I really like a deep tissue. I like the deep, hard massage.
Yeah, yep.
And obviously you can do like any level. That's just what I like. And I was telling my husband how great you were. And I saw you again. I think it must have been like 3 or 4 weeks later. And a little birdie told me that you were leaving and
Yeah.
and starting your own thing. And so I liked you so much. Plus you're fun to have you're a fun person to have work on me. Um and so my gosh, you guys, this cat, I'm telling you. Um I really
Yeah, I
always
think,
enjoyed
yeah.
the massages. And so you were leaving around the time that I would have to renew my membership anyway, which I chose not to do. And I've been with you ever since. You've been stuck with me. And what year was that? Was that 21 or 22?
So, yeah, I've been at my own place now for 3 years. So I would say, um, yeah,
21.
probably 2021. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So coming up on, and at least almost 4 years. Yeah. Yeah.
That's gone really fast.
Yeah. Yep. Uh, yeah. And, talking about, I'm really fun. uh, I think that's probably one of the biggest differences I think that I do that maybe other massage therapists don't. People come in and they feel like they're hanging out with a friend while I
Yeah.
give them a massage. And I think that's, sometimes you have massage therapists and like, shh, just be quiet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And we just shoot the crap the entire time and giggle a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I work on that knot. I tell a joke, you start laughing, and then I crank on that knot, and yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And for the people who like to just mellow out and relax and not talk, that is a service that you do offer.
It's surprised. People are like, no, you don't. I'm like, no, I can be quiet, believe it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, so I followed Holly to where she is now, which is in Spring Lake, sorry. Yeah, Spring Lake Park.
Yep, Surrounding Park.
Um and it's been heaven ever since. So at some point when you were in your new location, I started getting like I guess you could call it like a psychic download. And I was like, we're gonna start working together. And I was thinking to myself, I barely know this woman. I can't be like, oh, by the way, I'm not sure what it means or how it's gonna turn out or what, but we're going to start working together. So eventually I somehow built up the nerve because it kept coming in. It was like over and over and over again. We're going to work together. And I truly didn't know what that meant. Um, but I remember I told you, and I don't really even remember what your response was, but I remember I just like finally said it. And so that was, gosh, that was probably in 22.
Yeah, it was probably, yeah, I would say 22. Um, I think too, at that point in your life, you had just started kind of developing your psychic
Yeah,
abilities and you're still in what you would call the psychic closet. And so I think initially you were afraid to even tell me that you had abilities. And of course I was,
yeah,
oh, I'm all about that. Let me tell you some ghost stories and things and whatever. And I could, I could tell that you were like, oh, okay, she doesn't think I'm crazy. And so, yeah,
yeah.
when you had said, I see us doing this and I think this is what it is, but I'm not sure. And I was like, yeah, let's text each other back and forth and come up with different ideas and whatever and how that looks. And, I think we offer something completely different than, I mean, not completely different, but unique in that there is a chair massage happening while you're doing a group reading.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, a unique thing. So it part of the question, and I think the initial, well, really what the first question is, how are we going to work together? Because I don't do massage. I'm not a licensed massage therapist like you are, and you're not developing psychically like I was and am at that time. And so it was kind of like both of them definitely deal with energy work. Um, but in different degrees. So it was kind of like, how do we put that together and what does that look like? And I remember you had mentioned doing um work somewhere and you mentioned that you had a massage chair. And that's I think kind of when it dawned on me that, oh my gosh, we could do like a joint like group reading. And initially the first one that we offered was just like practice that we offered people that we knew.
Yeah.
Um, We didn't charge for it. It was practice. We didn't really even know what to expect. I'm pretty sure we even told our guests that we didn't know what to expect or how it would go, and that they were kind
Yeah.
of guinea
Yeah.
pigs, really.
Yeah.
They were our guinea pigs, but we had 10 great volunteers that came, and you have a connection with a woman named Mandy who has a really cool office space that she lets us rent out, and it all just came together so organically um, and truly in a way that I really didn't expect. I never read for 10 people before all at once. I've done like smaller groups, but not 10 people. And and it was kind of like, okay, how is it going to work? How is Holly going to pull people aside for their individualized massage during this group reading without interrupting the group reading? So it was kind of like a lot of logistics really to work out, but it all just
Yeah.
seemed to flow, I think.
It came together quite nicely. And I think the first couple of times it was, for me, my biggest worry was how was I going to time that appropriately? Um, and also not pull people out while they're getting a reading because I want them to be absorbed in what's happening for them. And how do I do
Yeah.
that without being disruptive? But I think we figured that out. Um, and it seems to go as if, this was, like we've been doing it for years, which I mean, we've been doing it now for, I think, almost 2 years, but
Yeah.
it flows really nicely.
It really does. And actually, because I don't control what comes in or how information comes in or when a person gets the reading that they get, but it has happened a few times where there is a person in the chair with you and they get the reading at the same time. And so that's
Yeah.
happened a handful of times, but it's like we just roll with it. I guess we really haven't talked. Does that disrupt your massage or do you just keep doing your thing?
Um, I kind of keep doing my thing. And, over the last 2 years, I've kind of tapped into energy healing and what that looks like. And so when that's going on, oftentimes, I mean, a lot of these readings can be kind of emotional. And so oftentimes I'll just put hand over their mid back, and kind of focus on their heart chakra. And then I kind of work on their third eye so that they can receive the information, but still not be so overwhelmed while I'm working on them.
Yeah.
So I kind of just refocus my energy a little bit so that it's like, well, the time is now, even though you're getting the massage. And I was trying to do it where it wasn't going to happen that way, but here we are. And it
Right.
still works out. Nobody's ever complained about it. So
Yeah, and actually I've found that at least from my perspective, and I don't always like remember a lot. So when I do a reading, whether it's a group setting or a one-on-one, I forget a lot. And so I feel like with our massage and mediumships, my memories are kind of like in snippets.
yeah,
Like our very first one that I mentioned where we had essentially guinea pigs, I really don't remember. Well, there's one thing I remember very well. But other than that, I really don't, it's all kind of a blur. But my point in mentioning that is when from my perspective, I've noticed that when someone's in the chair getting the massage, getting that energy healing with you, and they're getting the messages from heaven at the same time, those seem to be some of the more powerful, I think, um, readings that happen in those events because, and I'm not sure if it's because the person is getting all this information and getting emotional and then also receiving everything that you're doing all at the same time. And it kind of like,
right.
kind of, what's the word? Like it just seems to like flow really well together. And then,
Yeah, yeah,
and I just keep talking. It like spills out of me. So I don't know if I'm describing that well
yeah.
enough.
I feel like, an outsider might hear that and say, well, that sounds really overwhelming.
Sure.
But it's almost calming. It's not overwhelming. It's not like, it's more
Yeah.
like, oh wow, and oh wow. It's like you're getting healed almost in a spiritual way, an emotional way, and a physical way. Um,
Yeah. It's
and
cool.
it is really, really cool to be a part of that.
And it's not to say that a person getting a reading who's not in the massage chair is getting any less of a reading. My point in mentioning all of this is if someone's interested in coming to an M&M and they've never been to one, or they're wondering how it works with the group reading and with the massage on the side, first of all, I always tell people you don't miss a minute. The only time you're going to miss a minute is if you choose to step out and like maybe go use the restroom or something. But we're in the same room. You don't miss anything.
Yeah,
And yeah, sometimes it just happens to be where you're getting everything all at once. And like you said, I can understand why people would think that that would be overwhelming. But from my observation, yeah,
yeah,
it seems to be really kind of like relaxing and powerful when that
yeah,
happens. But
yeah, yeah. I
but
agree.
um but again, someone who's not in the massage chair but is getting the reading, I don't think it's any less powerful. I think it's just a different way to receive all that attention and energy in two different ways between the group reading and the massage chair.
Yeah, yeah. I think going back to like uh, the expectations of what uh, massage and a medium is. A lot of people do ask, like, so when you're massaging, am I out of the room? How does that? I'm like, no. So I handle all the communication so that June doesn't know who's coming. So you're interested, you email me. That's VH, V is in Violet, vhmassage21@gmail.com. And once you say I'm interested, I can make it to that date. Um, I send you an invoice through Violet Healing Massage. You pay that invoice. Once that invoice is paid, I then send out another email about when, where, and how. Um, and then when everybody arrives, I'm there to greet you. You come into this room. It's a yoga studio, like, so there's like big glass windows behind us, and it's a big open area. And then I kind of do an introduction while June is meditating, and then it's it, June's spirit guides let her know when it's time to come in. So I never have to leave the room to go get her. she shows up like right on time, right on cue. And then I just start pulling people one by one off to the side and do chair massage while June does the group reading.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. And it's fun for me to not know. So, first of all, I really appreciate that you do handle all the communication and the sign up because I really prefer to not know who's going to be there. So, it just from like a discernment aspect. But also it's fun to just kind of walk in and like, oh, I know that person. Thanks for coming. Or, oh, some
Yeah,
new faces I haven't seen before. That's fun too. So, um, I enjoy not knowing who will be there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm hoping that it also gives people confidence in the psychic's ability, knowing that the psychic doesn't know who's going to be there and you still get all this information anyway, like, and I call it non-Googleable information. I think it's important to give really specific validations that only the person would know, that you can't just Google. I have plenty of other things to do than try to Google information about people. So, uh,
yeah, yep,
but it's nice that you handle all the setup. I really appreciate that, or all the communication and
yeah,
logistics. I really appreciate it because I really just I show up, I sage the place, um, and then I go into my little room and I meditate until it's time to work.
yeah, yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we kind of already covered this, but I want to like make sure to actually ask the question. When we first started massage and mediumship and where it is now, what initial expectations did you have going into kind of our little experiment versus what it's become now?
Um, I guess in the beginning I didn't really have any any set expectations because it wasn't anything I'd ever done before and anything I'd ever really seen before. Um, so as far as expectations, um, other than just people are going to get messages from their loved ones, that was kind of you know, the only expectations I really had. What it became, what I didn't think about is the community that we kind of brought together. There's been several like feedbacks I've gotten from people where they've gotten a really difficult, I wouldn't say difficult, but like emotional reading. Um, and when everybody leaves, they go out into the parking lot and they all talk, and they're like, "I'm gonna pray for you, and you're in my thoughts, and I've had something similar, and do you want to exchange numbers? Do you want to talk?" And so what I didn't expect is the community that we kind of brought together. And that's a beautiful thing. Like I didn't anticipate that would be something that would come out of this.
I think that's so cool. And so after, back up a little bit, after the reading is over, which I've learned they usually keep me open for about 90 minutes. I go back and in my little room and I close down psychically. So when we're done, I don't get to say goodbye to people. You're saying goodbye to them, they're leaving. So I don't hear those conversations. And then, now knowing, which you did share with me more recently, knowing that people go out into the parking lot and they talk and they, exchange numbers or complete strangers to one another.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. I love, yeah, I didn't anticipate that either. I really love that people feel comfortable enough with one another to do that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's been special. And you always say, in the beginning that the messages that are given to you are a gift and it's what's needed to be heard, but also they're not going to give information that's maybe too personal or whatever. Um, so there is no like worry about like, oh gosh, is someone going to know about this thing I don't want anybody to know about? Like it's whatever is granted for you and whatever you need is, you say it much more eloquently than I do, but um, so when those messages come through, Um, and there's certain other people that are like, oh yeah, I've been through that and I know what you're going through. And, let's, you want to get together for coffee or whatever. Like that's, I mean, obviously all of that was meant to happen.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. So, what I tell people is, I, from my own experience, it seems that in a group setting, people get nervous, especially if whether or not they're with strangers or with people that they know, because it's kind of like, how far are we going to get into the nitty gritty of someone's life? And so, what I tell people is spirit, and it's true, they always respect someone's privacy. So, in a one-on-one session, they will often get into things a little bit deeper because it's one-on-one. We don't have to worry about people hearing things that they shouldn't be hearing. The privacy is opened up a little bit more in a one-on-one, but in a group setting, privacy is always honored by spirit, and anything that comes through, even a difficult message, it'll come through in a way that only you will know what we're talking about. Sometimes I don't even know what we're talking about, but as long as it makes sense to the guest or to the client, that's what matters. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely in a group setting, the privacy is absolutely respected. And then in a one-on-one, we get into things a little bit deeper. Um, so yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I think it's important for people to know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, Another thing I wanted to ask you, so you've talked a little bit about the feedback that you've received in terms of, the community that has unintentionally been built around the M&M, but I think is so cool. Um, what other feedback have you received? I've received some, but you talk to the people a lot more than I do before and
Yeah.
after.
Yeah. I haven't had anybody give me any negative feedback. Um, even the people that don't get a reading, and we always give people who don't receive any messages, do you have a question? And June will go through and answer people's questions, and it's usually maybe one or two people that didn't receive any messages for that 90 minutes. And sometimes people still are like, no, I'm good. I don't have any questions. And June and I are always like, oh, I hope they've had a good time. I hope they're not disappointed that they didn't get a message. And every single person's like, that was so amazing. It was so cool to see other people's stories and to be a part of it. And oftentimes they sign up for round two for Massage and Medium. Um, yeah, that's been the feedback I have gotten specifically about that.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
I think that's another important thing to talk about too is, I never guarantee a reading for somebody. Everything that comes through, is what people have earned. So it's not only what we've earned here on earth, but it's what your loved ones on the other side have earned and have been allowed to send through, the medium, whether it's me or somebody else, as long as they're qualified. Um, so everything that comes through is what is earned. And sometimes I've learned what can happen is if someone comes in and is really skeptical, which I mean, I'm fine with skepticism. I think it's important to question things. I think it's important to have, um, some questions in your own mind, especially when it's something like this where so much is unseen and a belief is required. But I think skepticism is definitely important and a good way to come into mediumship, especially if you've had no experience with it in the past. But I've also learned that when people come in and the goal is to prove the psychic wrong or to prove that this person is a fraud or whatever the case might be, they're gonna get shut down. They're not gonna get a reading. Now, I'm not saying that anyone who's come to our events has had that mindset. But I just want to make the important distinction here, since we're talking about it, that if that is a person's mindset, you're really not going to get much from spirit because they know your intent. and they're not interested. I've learned they're not interested in proving themselves. They're interested in helping and guiding people and giving words of wisdom and helping people connect with their loved ones on the other side, or their spirit guides or their guardian angels. So, but I also think, like you said, it's really cool when someone can come in and just observe. And if they feel good with that, they feel moved by it, maybe that's just exactly what they needed that day. So I feel good about that too.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Okay, so what do you think is your favorite thing about our M&Ms? Do you have a favorite thing or a couple favorite things?
Um, Obviously just seeing like the connections. Um, I think my favorite is like when somebody thinks they know who they're talking to, and then you say like, no, they really love they got a Diet Coke, and then all of a sudden it like hits and they're like, oh my gosh, that's not this person, is this person. And they just like mind blow, and they're like, yeah, no, that makes sense, and that makes sense, and what they said before, and they're just like, you can just see they're just super excited because they're hearing from someone they didn't expect to hear from.
Yeah,
And they're getting a message through. I think I mean, that's obviously a favorite. And then obviously, my grandma shows up every single time just to give me a one-liner. And that always cracks me up because my grandma was a feisty woman. So she
she
always had
still
something.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
So
still is.
she-
I do remember, I do, like I said, I don't remember a lot, but I do remember your grandmother. I think she's come through in every one of them or close to every M&M that we've
yeah.
done.
Yeah.
She is feisty, that hasn't changed. So, um, but
Yeah.
she's fun, and it's always with love.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think gosh, I was thinking this morning, like, oh, what's one of my favorite things about our M&Ms? I love seeing all the people come together. And for me, I never know. So we have a group of 10 people. I never know who's with who. I mean, we have these 10 people sitting together. I don't know if the
Oh, right.
person they're sitting next to is their spouse or their daughter, their son, their brother, or a complete stranger. So for me, it's fun to, like, as we go along, put those pieces together. And
Yeah.
then like I think one time we had like six people that were like part of one family, which was unexpected for me, because I didn't know, and so that was fun to learn. I also really love how personalities of the departed will start to come through, and they'll make me feel their personalities, and then I get the validations from the group of people that we have. And that's one of my favorite things. Even in one-on-one sessions, I love when their personalities start coming through, because it's like I get to like make a new friend in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really cool. But I also see, Shelly, this cat is causing problems.
I
Oh
see his
my
little
God.
tail whipping around.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Um, as I was saying, another thing I really like is I, I am in an altered state when I'm doing the readings. So it's kind of like, how do I explain it? I'm in an altered state. My soul is a little bit out of my body. I feel different. My vibration feels different. The energy is different. So when you pull someone aside for their massage, or when someone gets up to like exit the room and go use the restroom, like I'm not even aware of it. It's weird. Like I don't realize it until like after. Or um I remember one time I was reading for the group, and I noticed there was an empty chair. Like I completely forgot you were even like next to me in the room. I mean, it was weird. I was like, oh, that person must have like gone to the bathroom, whatever, like not a big deal. And then all of a sudden, like something catches my eye, and I'm like, oh, massage. Oh yeah, Holly's here. I mean, it's like I'm in such an altered state, but I've noticed um people seem more relaxed after they've had their 5, 6 minutes, whatever it is, with you. I've
Yeah.
noticed that like their shoulders kind of come down and relax, and they're sitting in the chair different. So I have definitely made that observation over and over again, where people
Well,
seem to
yeah,
feel more relaxed after their time with you in the chair.
I think too, something that I didn't expect, nor thought about, is I've had people tell me that they're really grateful to get the massage because they were anxious or nervous or worried about how the massage and the medium was going to go. And when they get into the chair and then I'm massaging them, there is that they almost have this like, oh, okay, I can relax and I feel good. And I almost like help them be more open to it because they're more relaxed. And that's something I didn't anticipate. Sorry, I forgot that I'm next to the grandfather clock in here. You probably hear that go off.
Oh no, it's okay. I can barely hear it actually, so that's okay. Yeah, I think that's true. I can see it just in their body language. They seem more relaxed. And we always try to, when we say that people don't really know what to expect, I totally get that. We can talk and tell you what it's like, but until you actually experience it for yourself, you truly kind of don't really know what to expect. Um, oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. Oh, what I was gonna say is we always try to add humor. So what I've learned when working with spirit is like there's always an element of humor. Like yes, there's often tears of happiness, tears of whatever the thing might be, something that deeply resonates, just mourning the loss of somebody, grief, love. There's so many reasons why people will cry in a reading, but they always add humor, whether it's spirit guides, the guardian angels, or the loved ones on the other side. So I don't want
Yeah.
people to think that it's like a giant cry fest because it's not. There's
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of humor and it's where everybody's laughing, not just one or two people.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to mention too, because it really is a fun time. For me, it's a really fun time.
Yeah. I think that sometimes too when my grandma comes through, just to make a wisecrack out of nowhere. Um,
Yeah.
back in February, my husband and I bought a really large truck, like the kind of truck that when I stand next to it, and I'm 4'10", so it doesn't take much, but when I stand in front of this truck, like I would probably be run over if I wasn't 10 feet in front of it. And sometimes I drive the truck because I think it's hilarious, because I look absolutely ridiculous. And my grandma came through like in this moment where there was a lot of people kind of like hearing some emotional stuff, and my grandma's like comes through and tells June like, "Hey, tell Holly she looks ridiculous driving that truck." and, and then everybody just starts laughing. So it's kind of that's another like kind of funny thing too. Like I think my grandma sometimes like, okay, here's a moment. People are kind of emotional. It's gotten let's throw a wisecrack in there and say something.
Yeah, she definitely adds humor. One thing that comes to mind actually as you're speaking, and I don't remember if this was from your grandmother or who it was from, but we're in the group setting, I'm doing the reading, and I see someone dancing as they're vacuuming. And my job is to I give you everything. I don't hold back. I give everything that comes through. And sometimes I say something and nobody picks it up and it'll make sense 20 minutes later. So it'll come back and it'll make sense. And it's like an aha moment. But I do remember like nobody's picking up. I'm like, okay, who's vacuuming and dancing like it's a party? And everyone's just looking at me like it's nothing. And then Holly's like, I think that's for me.
Yeah. And nobody, I like, nobody else likes to party while they vacuum. Just me.
Just you. And it's like, but again, that's one of those things that's not Googleable.
Yeah,
How
right.
would I have known that? I'm not
No,
around you when you vacuum.
no, you wouldn't know that I do that. Absolutely not. It was
Yeah,
hysterical.
yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Yep.
Uh, so do you have any, I'm wondering if you have any favorite massage and mediumship stories that you wanted to share. And if not, that's okay too. I know we've already kind of like covered some of like our favorite moments, but is there anything else that comes to mind for you that's a favorite?
Well, I think we could both agree. One of the coolest ones was one of our first ones, which was you were given a reading and you realized that the other individual that was in the room happened to be another psychic medium. And the more you got into talking with her and trying to figure out what was going on over here, um, there was a woman that uh, was missing. And that's why the psychic medium had come in, because she was too close to that person and was unable to help. And she wanted to hear if you could see anything or hear anything about the situation. And I think that was a huge, like, kind of a surprise, because I don't think I mean, obviously nobody's going to anticipate that, but I think that was even particularly surprising for you as well.
Yeah, so earlier when I mentioned the one thing that I really remember from that very first session with all the guinea pigs, that's exactly what I was referring to. I didn't know if I wanted to talk about it, so we'll talk about it.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
no, that's okay, because it was a really powerful experience for me as a medium. So out of respect to the family, I don't want to share who the missing person is.
Right.
She was found sadly murdered. So I want to just not potentially cause any more harm to the family. Um, yes, in that very first practice, massage and mediumship that we did, all of a sudden I get this woman's first name and she's standing right next to me and I know she's deceased and she's telling me who did it before authorities really knew for sure, before he was arrested. And this was before her body was found. Went missing in March. This event took place, I think, about 3 weeks later in April, and she wasn't found until June. So, um, yes, there was a woman who was a guest at our event, and I didn't know at the time until like the reading started happening that she's also a medium. And she had come because, yeah, she was hoping to get more information. And apparently, the night before our event, she had a friend in California who was, I think, texting our guest information about this missing person and had asked that our guest inquire about it at our event. I'm trying to make this make sense.
Yeah,
Um,
right. Yeah.
and so she did, and everything just started flowing through. And it was so interesting how the night before our guest had this friend all the way in California, not connected to this missing person story at all, other than it was a national story. So the person in California knew about it. Um, so anyway, that was a very powerful moment for me as a medium. It was a learning opportunity for me as a medium also, because I have since learned through other experiences similar to this that I am to work missing person cases and unsolved cases. And so I've been working with a group called Supernatural Investigators in Minnesota, aka SIM, and I help them with unsolved cases. So that's something, I can't really talk about any details. I signed a contract with them, or like an NDA, and so I really can't get into details on and much of that, other than to say that I assist them with those sorts of things. So yeah, that first massage and mediumship was kind of like my introduction into, hey, June, it's not just mediumship, it's also this other aspect to, unfortunately, missing people. It happens, murder happens, crimes happen. And so I'm grateful to have had that experience, especially so early on in my development in our massage and
Yeah.
mediumship. It certainly wasn't expected, but I've had many experiences since similar to that. So it's definitely something I haven't been able to ignore, because if I did, that doesn't help anybody, and it's all about helping people. So yeah, that was powerful. I remember that well.
Yeah. Yep. Um,
So,
yeah. And then just to kind of switch gears, I think another one that was my favorite that I thought was pretty funny. Um, there was this new mom that was there. I think she had like a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And she didn't get any reading, so she got a question. And her question was more or less like, how do I handle my kids? Because they're so different. This one is like this, and my 1-year-old is just grumpy all the time and just never happy. And I don't know what's going on. And so the more you were like reading into it, you had asked, did your grandfather pass recently? And she said, well, my grandfather passed 4 months before I had my second child. And you were like, oh, your second child is the reincarnation of your grandfather. And he's upset he was only in heaven for 4 months. And that's why your kid is so grumpy. And she was like, I always said she's like a grumpy old man.
oh
I
my
just thought,
gosh.
what a funny concept that her grandfather reincarnated and he's all mad. He's like, I was only up there for 4 months and I had to be reincarnated again.
Oh my gosh, I completely forgot about it, but now that you just went through the story, that rings a bell. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also like a good example of how they'll deliver humor into
Yeah.
things too. Because
Right.
I do remember everyone was just laughing, including the woman that asked the question.
Yeah. Yeah. She was like laughing hard. She was like, that makes total sense.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that.
I
Oh
thought that was
wow.
pretty good.
That's funny. Yeah. Um, one thing I want to touch on, Holly, before, I mean, I know I asked you to come for an hour and we're almost out of time, but one thing I want to make sure to touch on is what I tell people, and if anyone's listening that follows my work or perhaps is new to my work, I work for God and Jesus. I will never say otherwise because that's where my spiritual gifts come from. That is who is allowing me to do what I do. Um, they are the ones that brought Holly into my life. They are the ones that brought massage and mediumship to us, which I really love and appreciate because it's so much fun for me. It's very rewarding work. And I know for you, massage therapy is very rewarding work. We're giving to people and it feels so good in return. Um, my point in bringing up that I work for God and Jesus is I'm also a student of the Ascended Masters, which means Jesus, Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, and Buddha. A lot of people are unfamiliar with who Kuan Yin is. I have more information about her on my website, junehessler.com. She is the Buddhist goddess of mercy and compassion. So much like how people in the West will pray to Mother Mary, people in the East will pray to Kuan Yin. They're the two queens of the universe. They obviously both serve God and Jesus. You can think of Buddhism as basically like a sister religion to Catholicism or Christianity. So, all of that said, I am one of their students through my spiritual teacher, Oracle Marine, who has been on this podcast twice. If you are unfamiliar with her, I really suggest you visit oraclemarine.com and listen to the 2 episodes that I have with her. She's a phenomenal woman. She's an excellent spiritual teacher. She is my mentor, and I'm so grateful. Through her work and her teachings and the classes that I've taken with her, that is how I become a student of the Ascended Masters because she works for them and they teach through her. She's a master level channeler and they work through her, they teach through her. And so I've had the good fortune of being allowed in her classroom, in their classroom, and being one of their students. Because of all that, and because I've shown my devotion to the Ascended Masters and to God, both privately in my prayer life, my meditation life, also publicly in what I share in the podcast, on social media, and my website, I will sometimes receive visits from them. And I do recall, Holly, you might have better recollection of this than I do, but I do recall one specific massage and mediumship where all of a sudden, and I have to deliver everything they give me. I can't worry about what people think of me. I can't worry about anything else other than what's coming through, and I need to do my job. And I recall all of a sudden I see Kuan Yin and I see Jesus, and I get really nervous because I wasn't expecting it. It was kind of a while ago. It was I feel like between the time that we started Massage and Mediumship to now, I feel like it was kind of in the middle. Um,
Yeah.
so maybe like 9 to 12 months ago, something like that. And so I remember getting really nervous in the moment and like sitting on it, like, oh my gosh, I know you're here. What do you want me to say? Because I want to please them. I want to make them happy. I don't want to displease them or make them sad. And and like I said, there's a lot I don't remember when I do readings. So some of this is a little fuzzy for me. But I remember having to deliver. Kuan Yin is here and explaining who she is. And I remember having to deliver Jesus is here. And I remember where he was standing. The big double door that we have in the room.
Yeah. Yep.
He was standing on the right side of it. Um, and I don't totally remember everything I said, but I remember delivering that the information that they were both there. They were making their presence known. And I just wanted to make sure to mention that today because there's a lot of mediums out there, even very well-known mediums that have a huge following and have television shows, who, in my view and my belief, do not give credit where credit is due, which is God and Jesus. And so anyone who follows my work knows that's how I feel and that's what I believe. I talk about it in my little intro before we go into our group reading at our M&Ms. Um, so they don't come through every time. But when they do come through, I always have to deliver it. So there may be a moment where a listener comes to a massage and mediumship event and it may or may not happen. I have no control over it. But I just wanted to make sure to mention, excuse me, wanted to make sure to mention spiritually who I work for, who gives me
Yeah.
these gifts. And sometimes they will bless, it's a blessing. Sometimes they will bless us with their presence at the massage and mediumships, which is super cool. I remember feeling very different than I usually do when I read. And I was really nervous in the moment, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. Like my brain's kind of exploding a little bit. Um, but I delivered it and I feel like it was well received. I mean, some people might have thought, girls crazy, but
Yeah.
I can't worry about that.
Yeah. I remember that moment, and obviously that was a highlight too. Um, it was interesting because I knew the moment something was happening with you because I was massaging and you it was almost like you were distracted and you had stopped talking and you just kept staring at the door. And I was like, is something going on? Is she okay? Does she hear something? Is someone else in the room? Like, what's going on? And eventually you were like, Jesus is here. He has a message. And it was a message about compassion. I think at that time, uh Russia had like started attacking Ukraine. And I think it was like kind of a message about like we need to start taking care of each other and we need to like show compassion, and he's not happy with the war. And I had closed my eyes to see if I could sense anything because there was a shift in the room, and I was getting visions of white doves, and I was like, okay, like I'm not super like I'm not psychic by any means, but sometimes I have things that I'm like, well, I can't make that up. I don't. Um, And then I remember instantly my hands were hot. I have never experienced that before, but my hands were on fire. And throughout the rest of the time when I was massaging people, as soon as my hands were on their back, they'd almost like turn and look at me like, what is that? And I was just my hands. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, I really think Jesus right now is working through me and I'm healing people. And
Yeah.
about 20 minutes into it, you had asked me, Holly, how are your hands? Are your hands okay? And I was like, they're on fire. And and the people that I had just worked on, they're like, her hands are hot. And I was like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
It was very magical, spiritual. It's just one of those things where you can't make that story up. Like that happened, it's real. Whether you believe in it or not, like I couldn't make up that kind of a story.
Yeah, it was definitely a powerful moment. I remember not only feeling nervous, but I remember feeling really emotional because when they visit, they will fill me with a lot of love and joy, and it's like a blissful feeling, and it can be overwhelming. And um I think I remember like I know I was tearing up. I don't remember if I actually started crying, but I know I was tearing up because I felt so emotional and I felt so loved. Like you said, it was a shift it was a powerful shift in the room. And I'm glad I'm not the only one that felt it. I'm so glad that you can validate that. I do remember
Yeah.
I do remember you and I talked about it privately after, and you had said I saw images of doves, and it just hit me. Well, dove is a sign of peace. Jesus is Prince of Peace. Like, hello. And then
Yeah.
with your hands getting hot, which I've learned with my healing, um, after my conversation with Echo when she was on the podcast when it first started, my hands got hot that very night out of the blue, and I've since learned that I have the gift of healing like you do. So, um, that was absolutely Jesus working through you when your hands got hot like that and gifting you the gift of healing. I mean, there's no question about it. That's what it is.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure to mention that. And I tell people readings are blessings. I think a lot of people don't view it that way, especially now that there's so much attention around the paranormal community and there's a lot of mediums that have television shows, and which I think is great because it helps normalize spirit communication. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, we can't forget where it comes from. We can't forget that readings are blessings. And so I always try to remind people of that. Whether or not they carry that belief for themselves, I don't know, but I always want to remind people of that and where it comes from. So it's possible that if you decide to sign up for a massage and mediumship event, Jesus may make his presence known. He may not. Um, I know that he's always with us and God is always with us. So they're always there, but whether or not they're going to make their presence known to the medium to communicate to
Right.
people,
Yeah.
I have no control over that, but I know that it's possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, all right, my dear, is there anything else you wanted to talk about today that we haven't talked about yet?
No, I feel like we've covered it all. We've given the people a good idea of what massage and medium looks like, and
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. How can people find you? How can they sign up for a massage with you? And I know that you're in Spring Lake Park, Minnesota. You work out of Hair by Hughes.
Yep.
Um, how can they contact you?
They can email is probably the simplest, vhmassage21@gmail.com. You can also find me on Facebook at Violet Healing Massage LLC. There'll be a like the profile picture is a picture of myself. Um, so again, that's Violet, not violent, but violet like the color purple. Healing Massage LLC.
And I'll make sure to have all your information in the show notes so it's easy for people to click on and find. Our next massage and mediumship is Saturday, January 25th. We do have one coming up in exactly 25 days, and we do have a few spots open. So if you want to sign up or if you have a question about it, you can email Holly. Like I said, I never know who signed up. I never know who will be there. We do charge $60. Um, for all of my group readings, 50% goes to charity. So not only are you giving yourself time to connect with your loved ones, your guides and angels on the other side, and receive a really awesome massage from Holly, and you're giving yourself some self-care that way too, but you're also helping people in need. So you can always know that part of 50% of my profits from the event always goes to charity. I always disclose which charity it's going to. I don't remember if I've picked one yet for this. I'll have to double check and post it on my website if I haven't communicated that yet. Um, so, and I know Holly, you donate some of your money too, don't you?
Yeah, I've done some to feed my starving children, Ralph Reader Food Shelf. Sometimes because I run the scouts, sometimes we needed a trailer fixed, so I used some of the money to help for some of that. So it just depends
Yeah.
on where it's going.
Yeah. So just know that it's not always going just in our pockets. We're helping people also. So January 25th, it starts at 10 a.m. It's in Coon Rapids. Once your spot is confirmed, Holly will communicate address details to you. Um, and like I said, it's $60. It generally lasts for about an hour and a half. I stay open as long as Spirit keeps me open. Um, it seems to be a minimum of 90 minutes. Sometimes we go longer. And I keep going until I feel like completely depleted or until they shut me down, whichever comes first.
Yep. Yeah.
So, all right, my dear. Well, uh, thank you so much for being here. It's good to see your face.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right, don't hang up
Mhm.
yet. I'm just ending recording.
Yes, that's fine.
All right, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.